Welcome to Joy of the Hang. I'm your host, Sharon Stevenson, and today I'm joined by a very special co-host, my husband, Scott. Today we'll be discussing a life-changing topic you won't want to miss. Before I introduce our guest, I want to take a moment to thank you for listening. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a loyal fan, welcome back. If today's episode speaks to you, please take a moment and share it with a friend. And be sure to click that little follow button so you never miss an episode. We drop a new show every Wednesday featuring guests who will inform and inspire you. This episode is one of those unforgettable hangs, raw, real, and potentially life-saving. Our guest today is Ethan Crosson, a vibrant and accomplished young man from Tampa, whose life changed in an instant. At just 32 years old, Ethan suffered a massive heart attack. By every medical expectation, he shouldn't have made it. But thanks to what he describes as a guardian angel, he was brought back, quite literally, from the brink of death. Since that day, Ethan has become a powerful advocate for men's heart health, sharing his story to raise awareness and remind others that your body whispers before it screams. He's living proof that heart disease isn't just your grandfather's problem. It's affecting younger men, and it's time we started talking about it. So today we're going there, talking about the symptoms men often ignore, the silent risks, and what it really means to live with intention after a second chance. Let's get into it. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thank you for co-hosting me, and welcome, Ethan.
Thank you. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's so great that we're going to talk about this very important topic. So, Ethan, let's start. The day everything changed. Take us back to that day. Where were you and how did it all unfold?
Yeah, absolutely. It was February 14th, 2023, Valentine's Day, of course. So that day has a little bit of a different meaning in our household now. We call it E-Day or Heart Day. It was early in the morning, about 2 a.m. in the morning, and I got woken out of bed and just wasn't quite feeling my true authentic self, kind of shortness of breath, numbness in different parts of the body. And that's kind of where the symptoms kind of started, and then kind of tried to take care of myself a little bit until then, which is never the wisest decision when you're ever experiencing any kind of heart or really head issues at that point. Make sure you do not pass go, call an ambulance, get to the hospital. But I tried to, drink, relax myself, not knowing that I was already experiencing what was massive heart attacks, smaller heart attacks throughout the morning, and then come to find out heart also skipping a beat. So it started there. Decided my better judgment told me something wasn't really right. So I decided to throw on the trusty Apple Watch, and my heart rate was just jumping all over the map. I did for really probably the first time in my life, Googled WebMD, signs of a heart attack, which, for as many times as folks do that, this one was very good that I did do that because it got me to drive myself to urgent care here on Gandy in Tampa at a fast track center. And then that's when things kind of progressed from there.
Yeah, so you mentioned that it started at 2 a.m. in bed and what did you think was going on?
So at first I really thought I was getting, typical COVID symptoms, the shortness of breath, kind of a little bit of the cold sweats that we've all probably gotten either from a stomach ache or some kind of flu symptoms. And then I've had sports injuries over the years playing lacrosse at University of Tampa. And I thought maybe, rotator cuff was just slept on it wrong because that happens occasionally. You sleep on your arm wrong, and I wasn't really at the time adding, 1 + 1 = 2, or in this case, heart issues.
And I think you mentioned to me not long before that, you were out on a hiking trip or something and you started experiencing some shortness of breath and you weren't quite feeling yourself then, right? How far in advance was that before?
Yeah, looking back, hindsight's 2020 with all these things. I was out in Phoenix, Arizona at the Waste Management Open with some friends on a guys trip, and we were out there doing all kinds of activities, basketball, golf, hiking, walking around the tournament. And usually I'm the guy who's running to the top of the mountain or racing or, playing basketball, shooting free throws. I think I probably shot 100 free throws and not one went in, which, never experienced anything like that in my life. And then running up the mountain, just shortness of breath and kind of getting the last one up the mountain, which would not normally be the case. So there could have been some definite signs there, but it just was not adding up in my brain. But, I should have maybe at that time thought something was going on.
So you were just thinking, I'm just a little off this week.
Yep, just a little off. My friends were even saying it, Ethan, what's going on with you? Like, well, why can't you shoot the basketball? I'm like, I don't really know. It's weird, but it's not where your brain goes.
But that's the last thing you're thinking at 32 years old is that I've got a heart issue.
Totally. I think I just didn't get enough sleep the night before.
Right. Or what did I do this
Right
week?
here.
Right. Or the altitude or something, right? The different
Exactly.
environment. So how long after that trip, you're home now and you all of a sudden have this massive pain?
Yep. It was probably, I want to say it was pretty close to the actual Super Bowl. So I think it was either the day after or a few days after the Super Bowl because it was a little later, closer to Valentine's Day. And so it was really only a few days after I got back from the trip. And then it was that morning of just, all those symptoms that kind of got me to seek the right treatment, luckily at the right time.
So you get up in the morning, start to get ready for work, like no big deal. You've got your Apple Watch on. Now things are looking a little strange. And you're like, all right, maybe I better go have this looked at. You drive yourself to the urgent care. And then what?
Yeah, so we get to urgent care. Luckily, we got there. That was, I guess, a blessing in itself. And filling out the paperwork as you do at urgent care, thinking that I'm about to get swabbed for COVID or something else. And I just kind of, at that point, I would say my symptoms just started getting a little bit more serious, right? I was kind of slumped over the check-in counter with my filled out paperwork. Not even sure how I was able to fill that out, but I did. I just, thought it just kind of had this moment of somebody really needs to look at me. Something's going on here. And then that's when they got me into the back of the urgent care. Pretty quickly did an EKG, and what felt for forever, but was probably only a few minutes, the physician came back in pretty pale and pretty shocked and kind of hit me with the news of you had a massive heart attack. You've been having them since. Your heart's skipping a beat. Ambulance is on the way. Quite frankly, we're not sure how you're still alive. So that was pretty shocking at that time.
And how far is the urgent care from the hospital?
Thankfully, it's only probably about 15-minute drive down Bayshore to Tampa General is where they took me into. So luckily, as soon as I got in the ambulance, they got me on IVs and put some dissolvable aspirin under my tongue, which was probably the first of two moments that I got my life saved.
So what happened in the ambulance on the way to the hospital after the aspirin?
Yeah. So again, maybe even downplaying the significance of what is going on, because obviously that's never happened to me before, or even something close to that serious. Never been in a hospital overnight, and basically riding down Bayshore in the ambulance. And I just, what they call in the medical profession, code out, which is the heart stops beating. There is no vitals. You are on that stretcher fighting for your life, and had a little bit of out of body experience within that, and then got saved for the second time.
So tell me about the out of body experience. What happened when you're coded out? You don't know for how long.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And what happens?
Yeah. So you don't know you're coding out when you're kind of
you're done.
You're kind of a separation from your body at that point, more of a spirit. So during the code out, kind of had this out of body experience, which I guess I could have quite literally been, of going to kind of a dark room, but with no walls, kind of just never ending kind of darkness. But there were some beings that were in some otherworldly form, kind of in a circle, not facing me. And then one of them turned around and started looking at me, almost gave me that look of, what the heck are you doing here? It's not your time, maybe. And then I woke again, not knowing that I had just coded.
And someone stepped in and saved your life. Tell us about that. What happened after that darkness?
Total guardian, walking angel, a guy named Tommy Villar. I was fortunate to able to track him down. Works for Tampa Fire and Rescue here in Tampa at Station 15, just up the road from the Gandy Urgent Care. He saved me with what's called an old school cardiac thump, which are, as he described it, kind of your last stop on the train. And thankfully, Tommy was a veteran of the force, I think 15 plus years for Tampa Fire and Rescue. And then he also works for Tampa General in the helicopter medvac as well. So I'm honestly wouldn't be surprised if Tommy is a lot of people's guardian angels at this point for the work he does. But he saved me with the cardiac thump, which is basically taking your fist and hitting the patient right kind of where your heart stands to attempt to restart the heart. He mentioned that The defibrillator was almost a little too late at that point, especially for a healthy guy my age, would have broken a lot of ribs and probably not been the solution I needed in that situation.
Wow.
I know. I would have thought the thump on the chest would have broken your ribs, and he would have to know exactly where to hit you too, right? To restart the. I mean, that's just amazing. I'm trying to imagine that moment, right? Are you like? I would think you see on the movies, right, that they're going to use the defibrillator and
Grey's Anatomy,
and he asked you if you felt it.
Right, and so that was actually what the first words he spoke to me when I came out from, what I eventually learned was the code out was I thought he was asking, like, do you feel all right?
Yeah.
And my ears are ringing, sorry, I got the cold sweats going, kind of all these symptoms you could imagine for having your right coronary artery 100% clogged to your heart. And I just wasn't putting, the pieces together because I didn't know what happened. But he was actually saying, did you feel that? Meaning, in his words, I punched your chest harder than I've ever hit anybody in my life, and I'm just so glad it worked.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So, did they ever figure out why? I mean, obviously, because you have a 100% clogged artery, correct?
Yep.
But was it diet, genetics, freak? No idea why.
Yeah.
Have you come to any conclusions or?
Yeah.
Around that, what you feel might have?
I say it all the time, but it's that mentality of not reading the book backwards. So at some point you've got to kind of just live in your forward progress and live with your new purpose out here. But the medical profession didn't really have straight answers for me when I got to TGH. They aren't able to say it's a COVID vaccine by any means, but could have been something along those lines. I think in their medical profession, they said there was just a blockage that broke off and then clogged the right coronary 100%. And that's, think of it as, 4 tubes and one being clogged. It just kind of stops the whole progression of the blood flow. And so I don't think there's ever probably going to be an answer of why exactly. But as a relatively healthy, 32-year-old, never had any pre-existing conditions my entire life, it certainly came as quite a bit of a surprise to me and all my family members and friends.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
Yeah. Looking back, were there any other subtle signs that you saw leading up to the event that may have indicated something was wrong?
I've actually thought about that a lot. And, a lot of times when you're having such a life-altering event, such as a heart attack, stroke, or anything really drastic, you kind of try and backtrack, right? What if I ate a little bit better? Or what if I, got on a preventative statin 5 milligrams versus, nothing at all? There could have been a few moments, Sharon, when I, was laying on the couch watching movies and maybe my arm was feeling a little bit not the full circulation as I look back. But other than that, there's nothing I can really trace that would have ever thought that, I was going to have a code out heart attack at 32.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder, none of us here are doctors. I wonder how long it takes to fully clog an artery. Like, is this something that progresses over years? Is it something that happens over a few months? Like, was this a progression that happened over a long period of time, right? I mean, you wonder at what point it becomes a critical situation.
Yeah. And I think in doing my research with that and talking to my cardiologist and otherwise, it can happen kind of either way, right? It can be a progression of plaque buildup over time. And then it just eventually gets to, there's a lot of folks who have quadruple bypass surgeries, but that doesn't mean you're 100% clogged. It could be 98%, 70, 85. There's certain metrics they look at. So it can either be a progression over time, but I think in my instance, from what it sounds like, it was almost like a rock rolling down a hill and clogging up a pipe, just kind of all at once. And it could have been some buildup that got to that point, but when it's a sudden blockage, it's tougher to kind of identify.
Well, many men delay going to the doctor, that's for sure. And I am really glad that you had the wherewithal to go when you did, because if you hadn't, it could have been a very different outcome.
Yeah. 15 minutes. I now joke, but it's so true. 15 minutes can change everything. Had I not thrown on that Apple Watch, had I not driven myself, you don't come back from a code out when you're sitting on your couch by yourself, right? I even went into Tampa General and leaving the urgent care as a John Doe. So when I was in the hospital, I was actually, I think Dupac Doe was my name. They assign you because they just go down the alphabetical order list of whatever the list of names is that day. So even when I was there, it was pretty hard to let people know what was going on because unbeknownst to me, didn't even have my real name on the charts. And so when folks are looking for me, it kind of took a little bit longer because nobody at all knew what was going on besides me at that moment.
Well, I think this is an important statistic to share that many of you may not be aware of. Nearly 50% of men who die suddenly of coronary heart disease had no previous symptoms. That's crazy to me. Yeah,
Scary.
very scary. So we talked about the doctors and why they said this would happen and had happened to you, and you said they really never figured it out and you decided to move forward. How did your understanding of heart health shift after this experience?
Yeah, quite a few different ways, right? You know, my profession being in employee benefits, my whole 14 plus years career being an employee benefits broker, I ironically was the guy standing in front of hundreds of people saying, get your preventative services. They're free. Why would you go and get your car oil changed once or twice a year? You're not going to go take care of the machine that is your body. So it's gotten me involved, obviously reignited my flame as far as passionate about helping people navigate what is probably an overcomplicated healthcare industry in general. I think it's super important to get your preventative services done early and often. I could have potentially been in a situation where maybe had I gone to the doctor sooner, and I was pretty regular with my annual checkups before COVID, but admittedly didn't stay on those as much as I could have. But it could have been, like I said, put on a low dose statin or cholesterol or blood pressure medicine. And so what's really on the other side has got me really involved with the American Heart Association here in Tampa. I think I saw it as an opportunity to spread awareness, raise money. Probably every single one of us has some form of string connected to somebody with stroke or heart failure. It's just the statistics are out there. They're not in our favor. So raising that awareness of this can be preventable, whether it's, getting AEDs, automatic electric devices in classrooms or parks or basically every public setting in America, so that if somebody does get to that stage, it's accessible. Or you've got, if you're fortunate enough to have a guardian angel like myself with Tommy, then that's there as well. But really it's just, myself being a male in particular, I think we always think we're that invincible force that's, I'm never going to get hurt or I'm never going to show emotions. And we've really got to all collectively kind of break down those barriers, because I can promise you that heart disease does not, make selections of who's tougher and who's not.
Does not discriminate.
It does not. Certainly not.
Does not. And I love the analogy you used about the car, because I say that often as well. I say we take better care of the car in our garage, which frankly is replaceable, than we do our own body, which is not replaceable. Like, we really have to fuel our bodies as though, it's the one that we're given, right? We have to take care of it. Yeah, you can't. And more people, they don't think along those lines. And unfortunately, the food industry has made it very difficult for us to eat in a clean way that fuels our body properly. I mean, we are very much into health and fitness, Scott and I, and we're very aware of what we purchase at the grocery store. And so we both kind of got into a vegan lifestyle not too long ago. And we were shocked when we started really reading labels and paying attention to what we had in our cupboard, what's in a ketchup bottle and all the oils and all the trans fats and all the oils that are in everything, and products you can't even pronounce, right? All these preservatives.
If you can't pronounce it, you probably shouldn't be putting it into your body.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but I think the deck's almost stacked against us when it comes to eating better, because not only is it harder to navigate, harder to understand, it's also a lot of times way more expensive. So there's got to be some kind of systemic change here eventually, because your input is your output, especially within your body. And it's no different than using the car analogy. If you put in gasoline that's got all kinds of chunks of debris or dirt or water in it, you're not going to have good results. That engine's going to break down in some manner or form. So ounce of prevention for a pound of good health in the future is certainly something we've got to live by a little bit more.
And Scott, can you share with our audience what happened when we went on that vegan lifestyle for a short period of time? What happened with your cholesterol numbers?
Yeah, when I was Ian's age, I was kind of thought I was bulletproof, like you said, and didn't pay attention to my health, busy with work, right? Busy with the family. Health is the last thing you're kind of thinking about. And so being retired, we have had the time to kind of refocus, and getting older, right? Now we have the time to, kind of pay attention to our health a little bit more, which I never did when I was younger. But I have had an issue for the last, let's see, it was over a decade. My cholesterol was, over 210. So it'd be 210 to 260, not, I was on a statin for a while. And for a decade it was that high, and that was just what I lived with. And usually it was just over the 210, the 220. So it wasn't enough to be on a statin, but it was on the high side of average. And we decided that it was just after my annual checkup too, right? Annual checkup. It was 213 or something. And we started watching some YouTube shows on whole food, plant-based. So not vegan per se, but eating cleaner. So whole foods, plant-based. And we did that like 2 weeks after my annual checkup. And so we decided, okay, when we went through the cupboards and we just, went in and started looking at the ingredients and decided to get rid of all the oils, all the things we couldn't pronounce. If it had more than a few ingredients in it, then it's probably not good for you, right? So it ended up cleaning out our cupboards.
Yeah, we have a lot of stuff.
And
Yeah.
so we went whole food, plant-based. It was actually 10 days exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I think on day 8 or something, I said, let's get our baseline. So that, 3 months from now, we can get our numbers again and see whether we improve or not. Well, after a decade of being at 210 to, like I said, 250 or so, we went in, had my cholesterol done. And this was less than a month after my annual checkup, which it was 213, I think. My cholesterol was 153.
Wow. It's amazing.
In 10 days.
25% drop.
Yeah. Dramatic.
And it hadn't been under 200. And I couldn't remember when.
Probably changing too much.
My whole adult life.
Besides the food.
No. And we're pretty active anyway. I go to the gym 6 days a week, 5-6 days a week, play pickleball. We go for walks, go for bike rides to the beach. And on the exercise side, I thought we were doing pretty well, but it's what you eat is really so important. So we've been able to, even though we're not whole food plant-based now, we've put certain habits into our diet where for lunch today, mostly salads, right? And with some salmon.
Right.
So, and that's healthy, very low fat, and just healthy. So there's all kinds of things you can do just to, instead of having ice cream.
Well, which you want on occasion too.
Which we do have on occasion, but not that often.
I think the biggest life lesson I learned in the whole experience was everything in moderation. And that's kind of the code I live by. My primary doctor admittedly wanted me to go like completely vegan. And that's probably the best path for a lot of people, but I also take into account my lifestyle as a human and a business owner and connecting person. And I told her, I said, with all due respect, like I'm gonna still have a steak every once in a while. I'm gonna live my life. That doesn't mean I'm gonna have a 32-ounce ribeye every single week.
Right.
But if I want to have a celebration or do some things in moderation, that's okay too. And, obviously I've asked my cardiologist a lot of these questions and things, and he agreed with that of like, hey, you've still got to live your life. Just be a lot more mindful overall of what you're putting into your body. Because again, what you're going to put in is inevitably going to change your vitals like cholesterol levels or blood pressure or otherwise. And obviously we're in a beautiful, United States here where we have great access to healthcare, especially here in Florida, and great prescriptions. But I was never on prescriptions my whole life, but the modern medicine is pretty beautiful of not saying, hey, go out and eat a bunch of junk food and get on a blood pressure or cholesterol, right? No, that's not the answer. You should try and run to the lowest baseline metrics for prescriptions, but creating a healthy lifestyle and eating better and being more mindful, and then being on like a 5 or 10 milligram statin versus a
Yeah.
60 or 80, now you're on a much better path.
Right. Much of chronic illness is a result of our diets in intake, and much of it is preventable with just a shift in diet. And when you mentioned steak, for example, just a shift to grass-fed
Right.
steak
Totally.
is better.
Or a lean cut versus
or a lean
my favorite's a ribeye, but
Right.
but
Now
we don't
more of a filet guy,
Yeah.
right,
Things-
exactly.
Right. So small shifts can make a great impact. So did this force you to reevaluate, more than just your physical health, like how you spend your time, who you surround yourself with, or how you handle stress?
It's a great question. I would say so in a few different ways. Certainly, for over a decade in my career, I operated in a very mindset of profits, business, and career first, just to kind of grow, not coming up from a ton of money up in Maine, wanting to kind of create a lifestyle for myself, being able to buy things I want, all that. Career has certainly not stopped growing and progressing, but it's actually been amazing what happens when you kind of don't put that at your forefront 60, 80 hours a week, not taking any vacation. You kind of start to attract the right clients, energy, and connections that are going to want that balance for you as well. And that's been really cool to find that balance again, which was off kilter for many years. And then also giving back a lot more of my time, whether it's connections, resources, obviously charitable contributions, and helping organizations such as Meals on Wheels, Project Focus here in Tampa, things of that caliber that give back to my community that I live and work in, fills my cup up just as much as anything. And then I think that kind of gives me energy to go and do different projects that I want to do on my own. So it's been a really cool change in that way of, unfortunately, going through what I went through, but knowing that each day here forward is a little bit of a bonus. It gives you a lot more power to go out and make it happen.
Yeah. I loved you kind of turned your pain into purpose and ended up becoming very involved with the American Heart Association here locally in Tampa. And I think that's wonderful. And so you're spreading the message and trying to get education out to and awareness, right?
Yeah, it's I actually was able to become an executive with Heart this year, which gives me a much higher goal for raising charities for the Heart Walk every year. I think the goal this year is around $2 million for the Tampa Heart Walk. Tremendous organization and event that every year last few years has been hosted at Raymond James Stadium here in Tampa. You get to go out, have a great Saturday morning, bring family, friends, coworkers, any kind of relationships, walk around the stadium, walk through the stadium, see your, faces up on the Jumbotron, which is, kind of rare unless you play in the NFL. So it's a great way to give back locally. But again, like I said before, just giving to the Heart organization, that whether it's the awareness, money, or otherwise, of just knowing that, hey, this can happen and does happen to a lot of folks, and it does not discriminate. Like you said, Sharon, it can happen to a 10-year-old getting struck by lightning on a boat. It can happen to a 32-year-old in their sleep, or it can happen to a 60-year-old walking down the stairs. It happens, unfortunately.
Well, and to that point, I'll share another statistic. Heart disease is the number one killer of men in the United States. It's responsible for 1 in every 4 male deaths. So yeah, most of us have probably been touched by heart disease. Both of my grandparents on my mother's side passed away from degenerative heart disease. So I'm also very familiar with, unfortunately, they had a poor diet and probably not the best lifestyle. So yeah, and they did live to be in their 70s, but I watched them both suffer with heart disease as well. So I think all of us have been touched by it in one way or another. What are some of the myths or blind spots you think men still have about heart disease?
I think the number one is, it's not going to happen to me.
Yeah.
You think that your bingo card's not going to get called up there, but the reality is that it can happen to everyone. So that's a common misconception. I think the other misconception is that I'm too young. right? To have stroke or heart issues. That's
Right.
certainly not the case. I don't know if it's social media or the internet or awareness. I myself, after I had the heart attack, as everyone does, you go to your circles, and I've just heard a lot more healthy 30 to 40-year-olds just having more heart disease too. So I think there's this misconception that the rates are dropping or it's not going to happen to me. But if anything, we're probably more predisposed than ever. And probably a lot, to your point, Sharon, is diets, food, stress, the
That,
pressure of, having to always do more and keep up with the Joneses or whatever mentality you want to follow. And I think it's just okay to slow things down and take that vacation, go for that walk, maybe grab a salad versus a cheeseburger every once in a while. There's little changes you can do to make big impacts.
do you think there's a cultural issue where men are taught to push through instead of listen to their bodies?
I would say definitely. Whenever I do open enrollment meetings for my clients and I'm discussing their benefit packages for the year, it's always I do the oil change joke of how many oil changes have you had? Hands go up. How many preventative services have you had? Hands go way down. I think it is a cultural thing for males of us always needing to, and this is kind of across all things for males. Like, there's a lot of pressure on both women and men, but men are always kind of pushed a little bit more of that. Hey, you got to be strong. You can't be susceptible. Don't worry about going to get your preventative services. You're fine. You're tough. You played sports. You climb that mountain. And I
Suck it up.
suck it up. Whatever, it's been ingrained into us over the years. And we've just got to break that stigma a little bit because it's okay to be emotional. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to not be okay. And whether that's mental health, whether that's stress, whether that's health in general, it's okay to go seek help, whatever you're going through.
Yeah, and I don't want to leave our women listeners out. It's also one of the number one killers of women as well.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so,
Top of the list.
yeah. So that's another thing. I think women, our symptoms are different, I
Yep.
think, than men. And so, but it's also something you have to be aware of. Like, just because our symptoms might be different doesn't mean that you're not having a heart attack. So it could be indigestion
Yep.
or, right? There's several other.
And, we all pay a lot of money for health insurance, right? So we should really be using it to our advantage. There's a lot of good preventative measures, not just getting your preventative, right? You can do ultrasound scans on your necks to check out your four main arteries to your heart and get your age of your heart. You can do metric testings. You can do all these different screenings. And you're right, Sharon, women are just as predisposed as anyone, especially childbearing years. That's where a lot of heart attacks actually happen. And so it's really important to continue, whether you're a male or female, just get your checks in. You're already paying for it somewhere. And I can tell you that it's going to be a lot cheaper and a lot less stressful and better for you if you get it done on the front end versus having to experience a major event on the back end.
And I think it's new for the medical community to recognize that a woman might be having a heart attack too, because it really has been described as more of a male dominated disease, which is not necessarily the case.
Certainly not the case.
So,
no.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to be aware.
So you said you're focused now on giving more than you receive. What does that look like in practice?
Yeah, you got to practice what you preach when it comes down to giving, right? I always try and always give more than I take. Make sure that I'm never asking for something before I give something, because I think that it's okay to give people things with no, backhanded or expecting something in return, right? Obviously, us as humans, we have motives and things we want to have in life, but I think that you gain a lot more power in just giving people things out of the kindness of your heart, right? You'll use that example, or just to help elevate or get somebody to a destination maybe a little bit quicker than you were able to get to there yourselves, right? Whether it's in kind with money, time. There's a lot of great people throughout the Tampa Bay area, Sarasota and beyond, that have great connections, have built amazing companies, worked really hard in their lives. Mm-hmm. I think as humans, we've got to all lean on each other a little bit more and know that we're all marching towards the same goal and not be closed off or I'm not going to share that with you, or I've built this myself. Why would I give that to you?
Right.
it's okay to help folks. And if anything, you leap forward quicker by helping more people.
And it all comes back to you tenfold. That's what we've talked about earlier. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So tell me, what's something you've come to believe deeply since your recovery that you didn't before?
Well, it's a good question. Best question. No, I think something that I always kind of subscribed to was living in the moment, being mindful, being present. I think that for a lot of time, I was glued to my phone late at night, checking emails. I kind of had this just underlying tone of, I've got to stop and do this project. Otherwise, it's not going to get done, or somebody's going to beat me or take the deal from me. And the reality is that that might happen, but that's okay too. And being able to let things roll, let things go, not hold the grudges or the animosity, or trace back my steps and say, oh man, like what did I do to not win that deal? Had to have been me. And I think a lot of the times the reality is that it's a lot of times the other people, whether it's in business or relationships, or I kind of have tried to stop chasing relationships, which has been a toxic trait of mine, where it's like, if you call somebody 20 times and they never call you back, maybe it's time to let that either relationship go, or let that person reach out to you. And if they want to keep a connection going, doing it. So that's probably the biggest thing I've learned in all this. Time's finite. We don't have a lot of it.
It is finite. And to your point, there's a big push, and you hear it all the time on social media, live in the moment, right? Be present, stay present. It is so difficult to do with all the distractions in our world, right? Yep. And we're constantly looking ahead or ruminating about the past. It's so difficult to stay present and really be there for your partner, for your family, for your business, whatever it is, right? To really be in that moment. And the fact of the matter is time is fleeting. I mean, as we're talking, it's passing us by, right? It doesn't stop. So yeah, it is so important to find a way to be present and in the moment with, like, I really have a pet peeve when people are on their phone if we're at a dinner table, right? I really want to be engaged. And I have friends that are always like, you don't answer your phone or you don't respond to a text. And I'm like, well, because if I'm doing something, I want to be doing that thing, whatever it is. And I don't want to be glued to my phone. I mean, I remember a time when we didn't have a cell phone in our pocket, So for me,
no cell phones at the dinner table.
Yeah, for me, it's like it has its benefits and it has its usage. But boy, sometimes I miss those days when there was a phone on the wall. And if you missed that call, it either went to an answering machine or you talked to that person later, and it wasn't the end of the world.
Right.
There wasn't this sense of immediacy that there is now.
Everybody always thinks and social media is probably to blame for a lot of it, right? Like, it's the instant gratification. It's the now, it's the FOMO, right? Fear of missing out on things. And it's okay to miss out on things, right? Like I've even tried on sporting events when I go for live, instead of just recording it, just watch the moment, right?
Yeah.
Chances are it's probably recorded somewhere else if I want to see it, right? Yeah. Just be present in that moment, be present in your relationships, because you don't know when you're going to see people next. You don't know, what they're going through. So a lot of times people just want to talk and be present with you in those moments. And I think from a business perspective, that carries as much weight as anything, because I would always be a little off put when, I'm giving a presentation and there's just people on their phones heads down, right? Yeah. It's like, be present with me in this moment, be respectful of my time. I'm giving you my time. Please give me yours. And then we can, go from there.
Yeah.
It's important.
100%. I mean, I'm just thinking of concerts that I've gone to, like everyone's got their phone out and they're videotaping the whole concert.
You're missing the concert.
Are you even watching the concert?
Yeah. You missed the concert. Hopefully you got good recorded.
Everyone's got the whole.
And I would, unsolicited advice to people, but I would always say, if you can, try and not say no to major moments based on, I don't have enough time or I'm too busy at work. Earlier in my career, I missed out on some pretty amazing life moments because I needed to go to a meeting down in Miami to have an appointment with somebody versus sitting 10 rows up at Fenway for the Red Sox playoffs with my brothers, right? Like, there's just certain moments that you never want to get to our final resting days or coding out on a stretcher and say, wow, why didn't I do that moment? You're not going to be thinking about, oh, I wish I made $100 extra, or I wish I went to that meeting instead of that baseball game.
Right.
So if you can make it work, always choose the life moments and experiences because those are what stick with you.
That's such great advice. I live by that. So my daughter recently had to go up to Columbia for an interview at college, and it was going to cost me some money to be there for her. But I asked, I said, would you like me to get us a hotel room? And would you like me to be there for you that weekend? And she finally said, yeah, I would love to have your help and help me get situated or whatever. But for me, it was a cost of an airline ticket. It was a cost of a hotel room, right? There was some expense involved. My time was involved. But I was like, you know what? These are once in a lifetimes. Like, you don't say no to once in a lifetimes. The money comes and goes. Believe me, it goes up, it comes down.
Right.
But the once in a lifetimes, I don't get those back.
No.
So I'm going to show up as much as I can for those once in a lifetime.
For people. That it's so important for little kids too, right? I'm sure we've seen all these videos where you got the kindergarten at the recital and they're looking out to the crowd, kind of almost sad, and then they see their parents or a sibling, their whole world lights up and changes. So it doesn't matter whether you're 5 or 50, right?
Right.
People want to be loved and just wanted and show up for them because you don't know what kind of ripple effect that's going to make on people.
And you don't know when your time is up. So, yeah.
Nobody knows.
You don't.
Right. Such great advice. So tell me, what's one thing you do every single day to support your heart?
I try and walk every single day, or work out or play pickleball or some form of activity because it's good for the body. It's great for the heart, but it's also life's all about little accomplishments, right? I'm very much a to-do list person in my phone. I got a to-do list for everything, but you can have the worst day in the world, beat up at work or relationships or whatever's going on, and you still accomplish something, whether it's at the start of your day, middle of the day, end of the day, and you're doing something for your body and your health. And so I would, at least walk a few miles a day, if not hit the gym or pickle or golf or any combination of those activities. That's such an important part of longevity for the heart.
Yeah. You play pickleball?
I do.
Scott plays pickleball.
I do. Or hit the gym but I
Does-
agree
you-
completely. It's some form of activity that we walk to the beach.
Yeah.
We try to do that a lot.
Just move. It's free.
Just move.
It's free.
Just
It's
move.
one of the free
Right.
activities
Right.
you can do.
Yeah, go
Grab
for
a
a
bike, it's
That's
not
right.
hard. And I would say, Sharon, actually probably, I forgot to say this, but one of the main reasons why I'm probably still here, having waited so long to drive myself to urgent care, again, call an ambulance if you're having heart issues. I will certainly do that if that ever happens again, but was because I was a lifelong athlete and my body was resilient. And it did go through stress tests of cross country and lacrosse and all these different sports I played. Had my heart not already been naturally strong from athletics, it would not have been able to probably not have any heart or brain damage from it, or have the strength to even hold me to enough time to get to the hospital.
Yeah. Might have been a different outcome.
For sure.
I'm still imagining that moment, and I'm sorry you had to go through that. What would you say to a 30-something guy or girl listening to this who hasn't had a checkup in 5 years?
Go tomorrow.
Make that appointment.
Do not wait. All of your preventative, once your checkups are free for your medical coverage on all your major health plans. That's one of the benefits, I guess, of the Affordability Care Act, is that is all covered. So you're not going to be paying anything. Just go. Not only get your checkups, get your blood work done too, which is arguably more important because that's going to show your metrics. Don't just ask for the normal workups. Ask for your cholesterol levels, LDLs, HDLs, combined cholesterols, fiber levels, blood pressure, all these things, because you might be able to get on a low dose prescription and avoid a major heart event or failure.
All
I
right.
would agree completely.
All right, here's what to watch for, guys, because heart attacks don't always look like the movies. Common symptoms in men are pressure, tightness, or pain in the chest or arms, shortness of breath, even without chest pain, cold sweats, which you said you had, nausea or lightheadedness, fatigue or sleep disturbance in the days leading up. And finally, if you feel something off, call 911. Don't wait.
Yeah, and I think the misconception out there is that it's gonna be this massive heart explosion event that you're having a heart attack. No, that's not the case. It can be a lot of subtle symptoms, as you just mentioned, Sharon. So don't just think it's going to be this one catastrophic event and that's your sign. It could be a combination of all those things. It could be a combination of a few, but do not pass go. Go straight to the emergency room, call the ambulance. It's there for a reason. Best case scenario, you go and it's an anxiety attack or something less, more catastrophic than a heart attack or failure. You won't be sorry you do it.
So tell our listeners, when is your heart walk in Tampa?
Yeah, I'll have to check the date. I want to say November 15th. It's the Saturday in the middle of November because they've got to work around the Bucks schedule because we use their facilities. So they got to be away for that weekend. But usually it happens around 7 to 8 a.m. in the morning. It's a walk around all the facilities. Some people run it. I like to walk it because you can just have a lot of great conversations, meet a lot of great people. And if you do know anybody who's ever been affected by heart attacks or diseases, they do a really cool thing at the end called a survivor's lane, which you can run, walk down, ring the bell. It's a pretty emotional experience.
All right. Well, a lot of our listeners are here in Tampa and Sarasota and the surrounding areas. So if they want to get involved and be a part of the walk, they can find it online, I'm assuming.
Yep. Just Google or, Ask Jeeves or whatever's still out there. Tampa Heart Walk 2025. Reach out to me if you want to hear any more information about it, but it's free. Nobody needs to donate. I think that's another thing, right? It's like you're just being there and energy is all we need, right? Like, of course, if you want to donate or start a team and anything of that nature, you're welcome to. There's refreshments and food there in the morning. They do a little fun little kickoff in the morning, get everyone riled up. And then it's a pretty great, energetic day.
Do you have any final advice for our listeners about health in general or men's health? Or
No, I would agree with Ian. Just, get your annual checkups, use your well benefits. And then I would also say, when you do have your blood work, for instance, make sure you look at it and understand what does high cholesterol mean? What does a high PSA number mean, or these different numbers, and understand them and talk to your doctor about them.
Yeah, Scott tracks his on a spreadsheet. So he's very in tune with his numbers. No, it's important. And I'm not saying that to be funny. I mean, I'm saying that because look, our doctors are wonderful, but they only have so much time with you. They see you a couple of times a year, maybe. And they spend I don't know, they're limited to maybe 10, 15 minutes for your appointment. And then they're on to the next patient. And that's just how this medical system is set up. So it's really important that you advocate for your own care and that you advocate for those you love and the people around you. You know your body better than anyone. You have to be aware of those numbers and be in tune with what's happening because, our doctors are doing their best and they're certainly lifesavers. But at the end of the day, we have to take responsibility for our day-to-day health.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And it's a great point, Scott, because unless you're in the medical profession, they just look like numbers and things on a page, right? So make sure that not only are you getting the blood work done, you're having either a physician or somebody else in the medical field walk you through what they mean, because it looks like hieroglyphics to a lot of people, right? And then they just put it in the back of their filing cabinet, or it doesn't even make it home with them, and they're on to the next year. And a lot can happen in 12 months to your health. So make sure you're educating yourself and being a savvy consumer, just like anything else, again, in our world. You don't just go buy the first car you see on the car lot, right? You should shop around. You should find a cardiologist, find a specialist, find people you know and trust, because that can make all the difference in your life.
Right. And when you get that report and the number is red, don't be afraid to ask the question.
Right.
What does this mean? Is this something I should be afraid of? Is this, maybe my triglycerides were high for a while. It's like, okay, well, it's really not that big a deal,
right.
But I made the call and said, hey.
Right. And a lot of times it can actually be a supplement versus a prescription, right? And I would always encourage folks to fix things with supplements first before going directly to a prescription, depending, of course, consult your medical professional. But supplements are a beautiful thing, whether it's getting some of your cholesterol levels down or in the right, metric range, or iron levels. A lot of times people are pretty iron deficient. You can take a supplement for that, or vitamin D. A lot of us lack vitamin D. Of course, you want to always monitor and get your blood work continually done, because you're looking for changes, right? Year to year, 6 months to 6 months, things are going to change. Your diet's going to change. Your lifestyle's going to change. And we've got to continue to just adjust. It's not a one-time fix. And I've changed my cholesterol and prescriptions probably 3 or 4 different times now because I'm trying to get those lower milligram doses. You don't want to be fully reliant on prescriptions.
No, I think unfortunately our medical system is a little bit run by pharmaceuticals, and so
there's some influence there.
Yeah,
big pharma is a real thing.
Big pharma is a real thing, and but as much as you can solve your problems with diet and exercise, better for your body too.
Yep.
It tends to be the go-to if you go to the doctor and they just write a prescription. And again, they don't necessarily have the knowledge of nutrition either, so that's not a class they necessarily have to take.
No, they're on to the next patient a lot of times.
Yeah. So, and no fault of theirs. I'm not trying to fault the medical system. But anyway, we always end every episode. First of all, thank you so much. This was just great information I think it's going to save some lives. But we end every episode by asking, what advice would you give your younger self?
Younger self.
Yeah, we're going to bring young little Ethan into the room and you are going to talk to young Ethan.
Yeah, I would tell younger Ethan, live a great full life, maybe just not quite as hard. Maybe slow down a little bit at times. You don't always need to be the first or the fastest, strongest, or the best in everything. Give yourself the grace of just existing and living too, because living's pretty great.
Good advice, Ethan.
Do you have any advice today?
You didn't tell me you were going to ask me. I should have been prepared, though.
I
don't know. No, I guess not. I would certainly second what Ethan has said. And I think, maybe just you've been talking about connections and stopping. We talked a little bit about, the time we have on this planet. Let's make it worthwhile. Be in the moment.
Yep.
Yeah.
Super
Enjoy
important.
it.
Yeah. So important. So anyway, if you or anyone you know is suffering from heart disease, please go see your medical professional, get help. We'll also have notes we'll also have resources available in our show notes that will direct you to the American Heart Association. And I guess that's probably the best place for them to go, right?
Yeah, it's always going to be the best stop on the train. They are the professionals. There's a lot of great resources out on that website, AAH.org, I think it is. And again, it's a really cool way to get involved, spread the awareness. Just like I was saying, even in the last few years, the amount of exposure on the AEDs in different facilities has grown exponentially. And, we're in Florida, right? Lightning's a real thing. Lightning can cause very serious heart issues, and it does happen pretty frequently. We might not see it. So just make yourself aware, get exposure to it, and you never know what kind of impact you're going to have on people's lives.
Well, thank you both. Thank you for being my co-host today. And thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great.
Great information. I appreciate it. And until next time, Hang Squad, peace out. No, the stopper, right? Oh, no. Okay.